Welcome back. This time we're talking about the Academy Awards, or as they're known this year, the Hollywood Political Speech Awards. I'm just kidding. Well, not really. But either way, I'm here to talk about my predictions for the awards this year. This is a feature that I've done for the previous 10 years in my written column and something that I wanted to add to my YouTube channel this year, so hopefully you're going to enjoy it. In case you're not sure, the Academy Awards will be aired this Sunday, February 26th at 7 o'clock on ABC, with host Jimmy Kimmel leading the procession. Last year was the first time that I had actually missed Best Picture. I'd been 9-0 up until that point, but last year I picked The Revenant over Spotlight, even though Spotlight was my top film of 2015, on my way to a 16-5 finish on my 21 picks. There are actually 24 categories, but I don't pick the short film categories because honestly I've only seen one of them this year and just have nothing to base it on. I could go online and find other people's predictions and mimic those, but that just seems sort of pointless. Over the 10 years that I have made picks, I've finished anywhere from 10 and 11 all the way up to 20 and 1 year. That was obviously the best I've done. Last year 16 and 5 was my second best result thus far. And before I jump into the meat of the predictions, let me say this is an interesting year because it seems like we have a pretty clear front runner for Best Picture. That's not something that we've had recently. Obviously, it's La La Land. It seems to be winning everything. And it's also tied for the most nominations ever for a film with 14. What's really going to determine the evening, however, is not necessarily Best Picture, but how much momentum it picks up for the other awards. The Best Picture winner doesn't necessarily win a huge amount of awards. Look at Spotlight last year. It only won a handful and was grossly outnumbered by the wins of Mad Max Fury Road. La La Land is a film, however, that does have the possibility of picking up a lot of the technical awards. And the question is, will it or won't it? The way I make my picks is I look at the precursor awards, like the various guild awards, the Golden Globes, which is admittedly not a very good predictor of things, and then the British Academy Awards. And I've followed that with my predictions. So the fate of La La Land is going to determine the fate of my predictions. So let's jump into this. As I said, I do not make picks for Best Short Film Live Action, Best Short Film Animated, or Best Documentary Short Subject. They are being shown in blocks around the country. They were being shown near me last weekend, but I was not able to get there to go see them. So again, I've only seen the one, and that is the Pixar short film that aired in front of Finding Dory. So moving on to the first category that I will be making a prediction on, and that is Best Documentary Feature. And in this category, we have 5 nominees, and they are Fire at Sea, an Italian film about the tiny island of Lampedusa, which has become part of the front lines of the European migrant crisis. I Am Not Your Negro, based on the unpublished book by James Baldwin looking at race relations in America. Life Animated, based on the best-selling memoir by Ron Susskind about raising an autistic son and how they connected with him through Disney animated films. O.J. Simpson Made in America, the ESPN documentary about the O.J. Simpson trial and everything that was surrounding it at that time. And 13th, that gives us a look at the U.S. prison system and its racial divide. So this category seems like it's going to be a slam dunk. All of the signs are pointing to O.J. Simpson Made in America. It's won the Producers Guild Award, the Directors Guild Award. It just recently won the Writers Guild Award. And it's most likely going to take home the Oscar as well. So that is my pick in this category. Moving on to the Best Animated Feature category. This is a category where the Academy has really picked up a lot of obscure and foreign titles to mix in with the big budget domestic releases. Last year there was actually 3 pretty unknown films mixed in with the two sort of front runners. This year, the mainstream films do outnumber the obscure ones, but we do have 2 foreign offerings. But first, let's talk about Disney's two nominees, and they are the well-received Zootopia as well as Moana. Also, in this list, we have Leica Studios stop-motion animation film Kubo and the Two Strings. And for our foreign offerings, we have the French film My Life as a Zucchini, as well as the French-Japanese co-production The Red Turtle. This is a category where Kubo and the Two Strings picked up an upset 2 weeks ago at the BAFTA Awards. But that being said, and though I really do like Kubo and the Two Strings, this is Zootopia's category to lose, and I don't think it's going to. In the Best Foreign Language Film category, the nominees are A Man Called Ove from Sweden, about an aging man ready to give up on life until he befriends a younger couple that moves in next to him. The Salesman from Iran, about a couple dealing with a violent attack all the while they perform a production of Arthur Miller's Death of a Salesman. Tana from Australia, telling a story of forbidden love set on a remote Pacific island and performed entirely by the Yakel tribe. Tony Erdmann, a comedy from Germany about a man who invades his daughter's life by pretending to be her CEO's life coach. And Lands of Mine from Denmark, about a group of young German prisoners following the end of World War II who are forced to clear a beach of thousands of landmines with their bare hands. Of these 5 films, the one that's been the most news lately is Tony Erdmann, with the news that there's going to be an English language remake starring Jack Nicholson and Kristen Wiig. But the frontrunner does appear to be The Salesman. It's directed by Asghar Farhadi, the director of 2011's A Separation, which also won in this category. And with the fear of getting a little into politics, his outspoken response to certain political decisions by the new president might earn him a few extra votes. And I'm not saying one thing or another about that. I just know Hollywood and how that might influence things. I have not honestly seen any of these movies, so I have to grab at whatever straws I can to make a prediction. So my prediction is that The Salesman will win here. Now, unlike most of the categories we talk about for the Academy Awards, Best Achievement in Visual Effects is typically populated by films that people have generally seen. Now, last year, the relatively low-budget Ex Machina won over films that had 10 times the money behind it. I thought it was a deserved win. I was honestly surprised that it won, but not upset because that was a phenomenal movie. This year, our nominees are Deepwater Horizon, Doctor Strange, The Jungle Book, Kubo and the Two Strings, and Rogue One: A Star Wars Story. Now, again, I think all 5 nominees are worthy of a nomination, but this year there really was just one film that stood above the rest, and for me that was The Jungle Book. With the exception of Mowgli, its entire cast consisted of computer-generated animals, and they all were living inside a digital jungle. And it just what they were able to do was amazing. They deserved the win. They should win. My only caveat on making a prediction here is that I predicted that both Rise of the Planet of the Apes and Dawn of the Planet of the Apes would win their respective years because of similar effects recreating animal characters. Neither of those films won. I think that's a travesty in both cases. I think The Jungle Book will win. It should win, and that's my pick. In Best Achievement in Sound Editing, yes, we are getting to the very technical awards here. Our nominees are Arrival, Deepwater Horizon, Hacksaw Ridge, La La Land, and Sully. For me, no other film in 2016 made better use of sound than Arrival. I think in the case of sound editing, La La Land may make a run here, but I'm going to go with Arrival. In Best Achievement in Sound Mixing, essentially we have the same nominees with the exception of Deepwater Horizon gets replaced with 13 Hours. Again, I'm going to go with Arrival. This is the one I think of the 2 awards that it's most likely going to win. It could very easily win both. Obviously, I picked it both, but if it's going to win one, it's going to be sound mixing. Now, like Best Animated Feature, Best Original Song is a category where the Academy tends to bring in very obscure films for consideration, and this year is no exception. We have the song The Empty Chair from Jim the James Foley Story, and it joins its better-known nominees Audition and City of Stars from La La Land, Can't Stop the Feeling from Trolls, and How Far I'll Go from Moana. Anyone that talks about awards will always have some personal stubs that they're upset about that they didn't get nominated. And this is a category where I was actually pretty upset, almost more so than just about any other except for one, and I'll talk about that later. I just cannot believe that no songs from Sing Street got nominated here. I mean, it's ridiculous, honestly. I mean, all the songs that did get nominated, I have not heard The Empty Chair, but the other four are all great. I just can't believe they couldn't find a way to fit Sing Street in there. Now, again, with La La Land, the presumptive favorite to win Best Picture, it's a musical. It should win in this category. The only caveat here is that it has two nominees. They could split the vote. And if that was the case, I could see Can't Stop the Feeling winning because it's so popular. But I do think La La Land will win, and of the two, I think Audition will be the one that takes home the award. In the Best Original Score category, we have Jackie, La La Land, Lion, Moonlight, and Passengers. This is another category where I feel like a film should have been in here, and that would be Arrival. I love the score for that movie, but unfortunately it did not make the cut. I've seen all 5 nominees, but to be honest, I really only remember the music from La La Land and Moonlight. Both were great scores, but I just don't see La La Land not winning Best Score, so that's my pick here. The Best Achievement in Makeup and Hairstyling category is the only one that has just 3 nominees, and this year they are A Man Called Ove, Star Trek Beyond, and Suicide Squad. There really does not seem to be a pattern to what films win Best Makeup. It can sometimes be an obscure film that has great makeup that most people haven't seen, or it can be a film that for the most part just got completely trashed but still has great makeup and will win, such as The Wolfman several years ago. In this case, I think probably the best of the 2 that I've seen, Star Trek Beyond and Suicide Squad. I think I might lean slightly towards Suicide Squad, but Star Trek Beyond overall was much better received, and Star Trek does have a pretty good track record with this category, so I'm going to pick Star Trek Beyond as the winner. For Best Achievement in Costume Design, we have Allied, Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, Florence Foster Jenkins, Jackie, and La La Land. This is another category that's pretty well wide open, and a good argument could be made for any of them to win. This category tends to lean towards period pieces. I would say La La Land, which is technically in present day, is the only non-period piece that we have. I think Fantastic Beasts could play spoiler, but I think Jackie's going to ultimately win. In Best Achievement in Production Design, we have Arrival, Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, Hail Caesar, La La Land, and Passengers. This is another wide open category, and really anyone would be a worthy winner. This is the 5th nomination in this category, however, for the Harry Potter franchise, which has actually never won an Academy Award in any category. Fantastic Beasts did win the BAFTA, which isn't entirely surprising considering it's in England. And I think it might be finally time for the franchise to pick up an award. The sets in this movie were great. The sets were also good in La La Land. And of the various technical awards, I do think La La Land has a good shot here. But I'm going to kind of go with a sentimental pick here and pick Fantastic Beasts to win. Up next is Best Achievement in Cinematography, which has for its nominees this year Arrival, La La Land, Lion, Moonlight, and Silence. One of the only nominations for Silence this year. One thing that is sure in this category, I can tell you, is that Emmanuel Lubezki will not win. He's won the previous 3 years running for Gravity, Birdman, and The Revenant, but he did not get nominated this year, so someone else is going to have to win. Now, if I had a personal vote, I would choose Arrival because Joe Walker's work in that film is such an integral part of the presentation of that movie. But ultimately, I think this is one of those awards that La La Land will pick up, and its cinematographer Linus Sandgren is going to get the win here. This is where I pick the anti-sentimental pick. Next up is Best Achievement in Editing, and here we have as our nominees Arrival, Hacksaw Ridge, Hell or High Water, La La Land, and Moonlight. This is actually a pretty important category when it comes to picking Best Picture. Only 9 films since 1934 have won Best Picture without picking up at least a nomination here. 2 years ago, Birdman was the 9th film in that list, winning without getting a nomination for Best Editing. The American Cinema Editors give out the Eddie Awards, and this year they gave their awards to Arrival for drama and La La Land for comedy. And honestly, if I had to pick a top 2, that would probably be it. And like in cinematography, this is a category where I would pick Arrival, but I'm going to go with La La Land. Moving on to the writing categories, we'll start with Best Adapted Screenplay, which features Arrival, Fences, Hidden Figures, Lion, and Moonlight. The Writers Guild Awards of all the guilds are probably the least reliable for making predictions for Academy Award winners. And this year they sort of muddled it up even more by awarding Arrival for Best Adapted Screenplay, no problem there, but then they also gave Moonlight an award for Best Original Screenplay. The problem is the Academy considered that an adapted screenplay, so it's in a different category. Both of their winners are in the same category when it comes to the Oscars. And like editing, we're getting into the categories that are very important for predicting Best Picture. No film since Chicago in 2003 has gone on to win Best Picture without picking up at least an award for either directing or writing. So for Moonlight to have any chance at the top prize, it needs a win here. If Moonlight wasn't in this category, I'd say Arrival wins hands down, but I don't see Moonlight losing, so I have to make it my pick. In the Best Original Screenplay category, we have Hell or High Water, La La Land, The Lobster, Manchester by the Sea, and 20th Century Women. While The Lobster could be a surprise winner here, I think Manchester by the Sea benefits the most from Moonlight shifting to the adapted screenplay category. All award season long, La La Land, Moonlight, and Manchester by the Sea have been the frontrunners, and to remain a frontrunner, Manchester by the Sea is going to need a win here. La La Land could win, but it really has had no momentum in any of the writing awards leading up to this point, so I'm going to stick with Manchester by the Sea for the win. Up for Best Director this year, we have Denis Villeneuve for Arrival, Mel Gibson for Hacksaw Ridge, Damien Chazelle for La La Land, Kenneth Lonergan for Manchester by the Sea, and Barry Jenkins for Moonlight. All 5 directors' movies are up for Best Picture, and while it's notable that Gibson's back in Hollywood's good graces and Villeneuve finally is getting some recognition from the Academy, there really isn't much question as to who's going to win this category because it's going to be Chazelle. His work in La La Land is amazing. I mean, that is a director's film. The acting's great in it as well. The writing was solid, but there's just so many just touches to harken back to the heyday of movie musicals that you just have to recognize him here. So now we're moving on to the acting awards, and we're going to start with Best Supporting Actress, and the nominees are Viola Davis for Fences, Naomi Harris for Moonlight, Nicole Kidman for Lion, Octavia Spencer for Hidden Figures, and Michelle Williams for Manchester by the Sea. This is one of those years where I could get confused on just exactly what is a supporting role and what is a lead role, because Viola Davis honestly is on screen much longer than any of the other nominees. And not that I'm complaining. She's phenomenal in the role. I'm just curious because I'm a little confused. But her performance in Fences is honestly one of the best performances I've seen all year, and she should win. She's got all of the momentum from the previous award shows, and I do pick her to win Best Supporting Actress. In Best Supporting Actor, we also seem to have a front runner. The nominees are Mahershala Ali for Moonlight, Jeff Bridges for Hell or High Water, Lucas Hedges for Manchester by the Sea, Dev Patel for Lion, Michael Shannon for Nocturnal Animals. Ali is an actor who I've mostly seen as sort of a character actor and a television actor, and then I go see Moonlight and he just blows me away like a lot of the actors in that film. That was such a well-acted film. The precursor awards have been rather spread out. The Golden Globes awarded Aaron Taylor Johnson, who didn't even get an Academy Award nomination. The Screen Actors Guild chose Ali, and the BAFTAs went with Dev Patel. The Screen Actors Guild Awards tend to be pretty solid. If there's one that they're not great in, that is Best Actress, and that'll be our next category. But for Best Supporting Actor, I'm going to stick with them and pick Ali for the win. And as I said, we're going to move on to Best Actress. And our nominees are Isabelle Huppert for the French film Ellie, Ruth Negga for Loving, Natalie Portman for Jackie, Emma Stone for La La Land, and Meryl Streep for Florence Foster Jenkins. I do have to say that this is another category that features the snub that I was pretty upset about when the nominations were announced, and that snub is Amy Adams. She had been nominated for pretty much every award this year up until the Academy Awards for her work in Arrival, and then she was basically left outside looking in when it came to the Oscars. I will say Streep's performance in Florence Foster Jenkins was great, but if I had to pull a nomination to get Adams back in, she would be the one that I have to choose. But I don't have that power, so let's move on and talk about the actual nominees. The early predictions were solidly behind Portman for her portrayal as Jackie Kennedy in Jackie, but she's basically not been able to turn that into any kind of momentum, and she pretty much hasn't won any major award up to this point. Huppert was a surprise pick in the Golden Globes for Best Actress in a Drama Film. Emma Stone won Best Actress for a Comedy Film, and she followed up that win with wins at the Screen Actors Guild Awards as well as the BAFTAs. Like Ali in the previous category, Negga is an actress that I mostly know from television, but she delivered such an excellent performance that I had to at least mention it here, and she would probably be right up there with Portman as my two favorite lead performances among these nominees. Ultimately, however, I'm going to have to go with Stone for the win. She was great in that movie. She does not have my favorite performance of this year, but all signs are pointing that she's going to win. Our penultimate category is Best Actor, which is the hardest one to make a final pick among the 4 acting categories this year, because we really have 2 people that are right neck and neck. The nominees are Casey Affleck for Manchester by the Sea, Andrew Garfield for Hacksaw Ridge, Ryan Gosling for La La Land, Viggo Mortensen for Captain Fantastic, and Denzel Washington for Fences. Last year, 2016, was a career-making one for Garfield, but he wasn't even really nominated for what I thought was his best work of last year, and that was Silence. And Silence really is a film that I'm honestly amazed, considering it was directed by Scorsese. It was a very well-made movie. I had a few issues with the story in the final act that kept it out of my top 10. But, I mean, it's definitely a top 15 film for me. It has basically just gotten completely ignored by the Academy. So I am a little surprised about that. But overall, this race is between Affleck for his subdued, really nuanced, understated performance as a very broken man in Manchester by the Sea, and the equally powerful but very different performance from Denzel Washington in Fences. Personally, if I had to pick, I'd lean slightly towards Affleck just because it's a performance I just wasn't expecting from him. I know he's done solid work before. It took me by surprise. Washington, he's great. But we just sort of become used to him being great. And this is also, and I don't want to hold it against him, but it's a role that he did play on stage a lot of times. So this was not necessarily something that he had to dive in for the first time. And that's why I would be only slightly towards Affleck if I had a vote. They're both, among probably my top 5 performances I've saw in 2016. As far as the winner goes, Affleck won the Golden Globe and the BAFTA, while Washington won the Screen Actors Guild Award. Again, I think the Screen Actors Guild Award is going to be the best predictor of those 3 awards, and I'm going to go with Washington to win. And finally, that brings us to Best Picture. After 2 straight years with 8 nominees, this year we have 9 competing for consideration, and those are Arrival, Fences, Hacksaw Ridge, Hell or High Water, Hidden Figures, La La Land, Lion, Manchester by the Sea, and Moonlight. And if you didn't know this, the exact number of nominees each year can be anywhere from 5 to 10 based on a very confusing formula. And as I alluded to at the beginning, we do have a front runner this year that seems to have outpaced everyone. Over the last several years, we've sort of had a kind of a 2-horse race each year. We had 12 Years a Slave versus Gravity. We had Boyhood versus Birdman. Last year we had The Revenant versus Spotlight, with The Big Short trying to sneak in there as well. Originally, the top 3 were La La Land, Moonlight, and Manchester by the Sea. But since then, basically, La La Land has won everything it needed to win to make it the presumptive favorite. It's won the Producers Guild Award, the Directors Guild Award, the Golden Globe for Best Comedy or Musical, as well as the BAFTA. The only major prize it didn't pick up was the Screen Actors Guild Awards Best Ensemble, which is essentially their version of Best Picture. That wasn't really a surprise because the film only has three main characters, so it wasn't much of an ensemble film, and Stone did pick up Best Actress there. The surprise, however, at the Screen Actors Guild Awards was that Hidden Figures won Best Ensemble over Manchester by the Sea and Moonlight. I read a few headlines where people were saying, "Oh, now Hidden Figures is in the running with La La Land." I don't see that. I liked Hidden Figures. I don't see it as a potential winner in this category. What I do see its win saying, though, is that neither Moonlight nor Manchester by the Sea has the momentum to catch up to La La Land. As far as I'm concerned, those films not winning Best Ensemble pretty much put a nail in the coffin of their chances to overtake La La Land and give us a surprise on Sunday night. So, as I've said multiple times, my pick here is La La Land. As I'm sure you've probably figured out by now, Arrival was my favorite film of 2016. That would be my vote if I had to pick. But I don't get to vote, I only get to predict, and my prediction is La La Land. So I hope you've enjoyed this. This is the first time doing a video version of my predictions, but I will be back early next week with a follow-up video to talk about my thoughts on who won and do a tally to see how well my predictions ended up. As always, you can subscribe to my channel, check out some of my other reviews, and until next time, I'll see you at the movies.